Of course, we're going to firstly hear from Ray Hayes, and then John Collegia, and then Warwick Brown, as well as we have a bit of a look at their operations and strategies to do with both COVID and in general. So the way we'll do things is that I'll ask each of you to, or all those that might be actually speaking, to switch off your cameras and to also mute your microphones. And that should help. And then what we'll do is at the end of each speaker, we'll have questions. But the way we'll do it is I'll ask you to go to the top bar of your Teams screen here and type your question into the chat box. I will then read that question to Ray in the first instance, and then afterwards to the other two speakers. Okay, so I hope that that's all good. And of course, at any time, if you've got questions for me about the LAA or any of our activities or any of the things I've put out on social media, please, we can leave those to the end, and I can talk to you offline about that. So I think what we'll do is I'll ask Ray to go live with his mic, and also as chair of the LAA, and also from SPL, I'll ask Ray to take over.
Yeah, thanks, Luke, and good morning to everyone around the group here. Really excited to see so many attending today. So with this Game Changer webinar, so what we'll do from SPL, which we've had a branding change recently, it used to be South Pacific Laundry, and I think most people will know South Pacific Laundry. We've changed our name, obviously, to Specialised Linen Services. So, but what I thought I'd do first is show you a video that we had made a few years ago when we relocated our Melbourne plant from Brunswick to Broadmeadows, which sort of takes you a walk through the inside of the plant in pretty good detail. And then from that, I thought I will touch on, strategies that we've got going at the moment around productivity, OH&S initiatives, and obviously, initiatives we put in place to deal with COVID. So I'll just run the video, and then I'll talk through some points that I think are relevant to the current state of the economy, current state of the industry, and the challenges we've faced over the last 2 years. And then at the end of that, we'll run through the questions. Okay, so bear with me. I'll just run this video. And hope everyone can see that.
The water
okay.
is pumped at high pressure through a ceramic microfiltration unit.
Let me just start at the beginning, hey? So my apologies for that. Here we go.
We invest heavily in cutting-edge technology to maximise efficiency while minimising environmental impact. Through the use of our own water recycling plant, we reuse 65% of our water, saving massive amounts of fresh water every day. After removing the larger particles with a shaker screen, the water is pumped at high pressure through a ceramic microfiltration unit. Finally, the water is purified through our reverse osmosis system, ensuring your linen returns to you as clean as it can be. Our washing and drying process is completely computer controlled, with micro adjustments made for differences in classification and load size. Automation is key to productivity, and every step in our system is geared towards efficiency. When linen is received for washing, each batch is monitored electronically, given a unique tracking number and sorted into classified rail bags. These suspended bags not only keep labour costs down and free up considerable floor space, but also keep your linen separate, clean and away from the floor. The first stop for the linen after sorting is our continuous batch washers. These large washers automatically control the wash program, cleaning agents and water temperature according to the linen's classification before feeding the linen straight into our industrial dryers. After drying, the linens go to their final destination for professional finishing. Sheets are fed into our sheet picker, which prepares them for ironing. The ironing process has 3 steps: spreading, ironing, and folding. Each sheet is also scanned for stains and blemishes. If not to a high quality standard, the sheet is automatically rejected. Towels are transferred to a clean rail bag to be fed into the automatic towel folders. Once every piece of linen has been through every step of our process, they are packed into our trolleys and dispatched back to your establishment. We invest in state-of-the-art technology to ensure you receive the crispest, cleanest linen every time.
Okay. So there we go. So that's a bit of an insight. As you could see, that was video was taken just as we relocated from Brunswick to Broadmeadows. So the plant was very new, clean, and that's, as all laundry operators would be aware, that keeping your business clean, free of lint, is always a challenge in this industry. So what I thought I'd touch on after seeing that video, the video will put some of the sort of comments in context. We're obviously in Melbourne here, very large laundry. We have a capacity of around 800 tonnes a week. We have exceeded that from time to time, which is a huge volume, but everything is relative to the scale. We now have 6 CBWs in the plant, 9 ironer lines, 8 towel folders. You know, we have a green room, we have a garment system. The garment system is a new addition, which is not shown in that video. But if I can just talk to strategies and issues around managing productivity, obviously not every business is as automated as we are, and some of our plants across the country aren't as automated as this one. So we've got a very diverse sort of range of businesses in terms of the level of automation. Melbourne's obviously our blue chip plant. Our one in Sydney is not far behind that in terms of automation. But one of the things we've noticed, particularly over the last 2 years, that's had a huge impact on productivity and efficiency of all our plants, and I'm sure is the case across the whole industry around Australia with COVID, is that at the peak of the lockdowns and restrictions through COVID, our business had to enter into quite a lot of redundancies. And unfortunately, we've lost a lot of good skilled staff we've had in the business for many years. And so as we're rebuilding coming out of COVID, the labour shortage has been an issue to us. But not only that, when we've got people back into the business that are new to this industry, we're finding that the focus needs to be on training. Our efficiencies dropped off because the quantum of new people in the business, which is a first for me. Normally there's just a trickle of churn rate through our staff. We're obviously at the bottom end of unskilled labour in our industry. But in general, we had pretty good staff retention, but obviously through COVID, that just went to a level that I've never experienced before. And when we do get them, they're new. It's a new exposure to this industry for these people that we're calling on at the moment, and the churn rate has been quite significant compared to what it was in the past. So we have spindle through our operation, and we manage staff efficiency, machine efficiency, and process efficiency. We measure and manage everything, and so we've noticed a significant drop in all of those areas in terms of efficiency. So one of the focuses that we've had is really something new. We've always had sort of ongoing training. We have a buddy system in our business, so if someone is new to the business, they're buddied up. But when you've got the quantum of new people entering the business, if I'm honest, I think it'd be fair to say that we ran out of buddies to put them with. So at one point we've had all the executives on the floor, and I've spoken to a lot of people within the industry through this COVID period, and my understanding is everyone was suffering the same issues. So in terms of strategies to increase productivity as we come out of COVID, it's a new strategy compared to what would have been the strategy pre-COVID for increasing productivity. Now we've got the automation that was obviously shown through that video. A lot of businesses said, as I said, around our group doesn't have this level of automation, so we're level pegging with a lot of other businesses in the industry. But what we found was with the loss of good skilled staff, we had to go back to basics in terms of onboarding new people, training them. You know, and I was brought up in this industry over 40 years ago, and I had some very wise words from a colleague of mine, and he said when I was complaining about the money that I was spending in a business that I was running on training, and he said there's one thing worse than spending money on a training program and the employee leaves in a week after they finish the training. And I said, well, what's that? And he said, well, that's not spending the money on training them and they stay. And that's a very funny, profound statement, but it is so true, and particularly in this environment. So in terms of us refocusing on our efficiency, it's training for us. So that's probably the main focus for us. And then the second thing that's changed in the industry as a whole for everyone is this COVID practices within the business and how that's impacted our efficiency. Now, obviously, with I'm sure everyone is aware that the unions have stepped up their activity with this COVID situation in terms of they're trying to leverage on employees about how they can be better off for being part of the union, and they're using this, you know, the COVID restrictions, the safe work practices. They're monitoring all that across the industry, not just ours. I've had anecdotal feedback from lots of businesses, and that they've never seen the union activity so focused on their staff. Now, one of the things that we had to do in terms of our COVID practices. Now, early on last year, we helped out a couple of other laundries that had staff in isolation and were unable to process. But what we had to do was the social distancing on the production floor was really challenging. And I'm sure you're aware a lot of our people are working in close confined spaces, so we had to put markings on the floor for social distancing. But some of our liners got four feeding stations. We had to reduce that to 3 to give that social distance between them where we could. In some instances that wasn't possible, but that had a big impact on our efficiency, and not so much the people efficiency, but the process flow and the machine efficiency. So at times when we were trying to help out our partners in the industry, because they were either shut down because of COVID their staff isolating, or they were just struggling with getting through their volumes because of staff shortages, we found that our outputs dropped, you know, significantly. So that was a challenge to us, and that also came to a point that as we started to come out of this COVID place, you know, everyone talks about COVID normal, and what does that look like? To me, there's some massive changes. We deal a bit in healthcare sector as well as predominantly the accommodation sector, but I've seen a massive move in our customers' habits. In other words, a hotel accommodation facility, we're finding that they're more busy on a weekend than they ever been before. Through the weekdays, they're quiet. Public holidays, we actually get smashed for volumes coming in. So in terms of process flow through the business, and this is still sort of strategies to increase efficiency, we have to be, I think, as an industry, more customer facing to try and understand what's happening in our customers, because at the end of the day, the volume of linen that hits our doorstep to process is driven by what happens at our customers' place. So that's been a real challenge for the industry as a whole. Everyone I speak to is suffering the same issues, where we can't predict what the churn rate of linen out of our customers looks like. And so we've sort of also turned our attention not only to training, but also communication with our customers to what they see as habits, and understanding their occupancy and what that looks like going forward as we come out of COVID, hopefully coming out of COVID. So, and then probably the third focus we have on with our business internally, and this talks to the points that I raised earlier about new staff entering the business and training. OH&S, obviously, safety is paramount to us, and I'm sure to every business out there. But one of the things that we've found that and I talked earlier about the training pack for new people coming on board to business, we've also had to focus on how to start machines safely, how to operate machines. We've had to go right back down to a granular level with onboarding new staff, because, as I said, the quantum of new people entering this industry, not only our businesses, but this industry, that have no knowledge of what we did. We've always sort of been in the shadows, picking away, but we're not an industry we're not a very sexy industry, and a lot of people really think we've got if you talk about commercial laundry industry, they think we're laundromats or we're dry cleaners, or we've got a whole row of hoovers lined up against the wall and we're washing sheets, pardon me, sheets the same way they do at home. So in terms of safety, we've had to have that refocus down at a level that we've never had to have before, with what they wear, what's safe to wear in the business. A lot of things we take for granted. And as I said, we've had that buddy program where we had people within the business will keep an eye on their work colleagues and point things out. But because, as I said, we're running short of buddies, that our onboarding then becomes a focus. And one of the things we've done here across our business is we've had a few injuries in the past with people getting trolleys impact their feet. So we've now got a policy across our whole group of steel cap toes for anyone on the floor that has a touch point with trolleys, which is predominantly at least 50% of the staff. So that's sort of predominantly the picture that SBL's facing at the moment. It's a back to basics for us with onboarding staff, training, and safety aspects. So I hope that was helpful. I'll throw back to you, Luke, for any questions anyone's got.
Thanks very much, Ray. The first one is about how do you actually recruit your staff, and the second question is about what training do you use? Do you use in-house training, RTOs, or others? Yeah.
So good question. Finding new staff has been an absolute massive challenge Australia-wide for us. We've reverted to outsourced labour hire companies, and even that they had no staff at one point. We're finding what we're hoping is once these international borders open up and borders through interstates open up, and we've only got one to go, which is where you are, Luke. So once that opens up, backpackers, obviously for us, Brisbane, Cairns, obviously those plants up there, we used to recruit a lot of backpackers, temporary people, but it worked for us in the business. International students was through Sydney and Melbourne here were a high level. So that dried up. So recruitment, we've focused on labour hire companies until that's until the labour market comes back, and we're hoping that will come back with the opening of the borders and more confidence to travel freely for people such as backpackers and international students. In terms of training, yeah, we do it all in-house. So we're looking at third-party providers, but to be honest, it's just come back onto my desk in terms of the training. We were quite comfortable with our level of training in-house pre-COVID, but now, as I touched on earlier, with the absolute quantum of new people in the business, we're finding it a challenge for sure. And so we're looking at different options to get more consistency and more availability of thorough training that can be measured.
Okay, all right, cool. Thanks very much. And one more just before we go to John. How has COVID and lack of staff impacted your rag out volumes?
Oh, so this is my pet project at the moment. It's had a massive impact, particularly through January was probably the worst. As I said earlier, I've been in this business for 43 years, and I have never seen the industry in this position before. Now, the position that I saw through January was through December, we were still pretty quiet because freedom of travel was restricted. January, we had our fingers crossed. We were hoping, right, so volumes will ramp up, revenues will ramp up, and we're thinking, right, we're on the road and pathway out of this. But then what happened? Our customers were extremely busy, but because of the labour shortage, we had more volume coming in than we could process for the first time in history. We've never faced this situation before. But the impact then was we had soil linen sitting at our customers, soil linen sitting at our plants for longer period of times than I have ever seen before. At one plant, it took us a week to first in, first out sort of thing with soil linen, and before we got to a trolley that turned up today, it was a week before we got to process it, which I had never seen before. That's now come back, but the impact on our discards has gone through the roof. We measure that very, very closely and have a focus on what the root causes of our discards are. And our mould and mildew rates have gone through the roof, particularly in the humid states, Queensland, particularly Cairns, Mackay and Brisbane, Sydney to a degree, but certainly across the board, our mildew discards to the point where they're sitting so long we couldn't get it out 100% to our sort of level of standard. So the discard, at the end of the day, we were throwing linen that was relatively early in its life cycle that was discarded because we were unable to remove the staining or mildew. You're on mute, Luke.
Yeah, thanks very much for that too, Ray. But we'll hold the other questions until the end because we are running out of time, and I do want to go to John. So again, thanks, Ray.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Luke. Welcome, everybody, and great to see so many attendees for this LAA webinar. I work for Googe, and we are a regional-based laundry. We're in Shepparton or near Shepparton in northern Victoria, a couple of hours away, a couple of hours north of Melbourne for those that are not familiar with country Victoria. We actually do kind of a range of services at the one plant, which makes our production cycle probably a little more complicated than just straight. So we cover health, accommodation, workwear and food and beverage at our plant. There's lots of similarities between plants and kind of what I've got a few videos here that just a few clips, not certainly you'll know that I'm not a professional photographer, but you'll see kind of a lot of similarities between kind of Ray's plant and what ours does. So I'll just start on those. So this is one of our sorting decks. It's an elevated sorting deck. You can't see there's a couple of operators down below tipping linen into those conveyors. which then come up to the guys to sort. The linen then goes up into the roof from there, so storage up in the roof, and then it automatically gets routed to our CBWs. We have 3 CBWs and they're 16 pocket units. We typically do in a week around 350 tonnes a week.
So, John, we can't see those videos, John.
Oh, can't you? Well, that's not good because I can. 2 seconds. Just give me 2 seconds, guys. Okay. Okay. So this is, as I was mentioning, this is one of our elevated sorting decks. Okay. I'll just rewind that once it's finished a little bit. So that's up into the roof in our storage area, and then just gets routed into our CBWs. We then obviously go through to drying and onto the finishing side of the plant. This is one of our towel folders. I'll talk a little bit more about this later. We've actually just recently changed the way in which we feed or we present the linen to the operators in here. And really what we're trying to do here is reduce some of those OH&S risks around the kind of twist and pull, and get some productivity benefits as well. Talk a little bit about that later. And then we've just another one of our ironing lines. So this is one of our 2-roll ironers. We use Bundle for our productivity system. And this ironer's got a 3-stacker at the back. This is our smalls ironer. It's a 6-lane ironer. Again, similar, cameras on these to kind of manage quality, and comes off the back on a single stacker. We're obviously, like everyone, we're doing a lot of work around, productivity. It's kind of central to most of the things that we do. And there's a real interconnection between what we do with respect to OHS initiatives, what we do with COVID management, and how we manage, our equipment, processes and systems. A lot of challenges really similar to Ray around people, and obviously, the flux of COVID and what that has caused, bringing people into the business, training them up, and getting them ready for work and safe. Certainly a lot of similarities in that space. Just in terms of I thought I'd take a little bit of a view about what we're doing, about how we're assessing productivity, and then how we're managing it. So, there's obviously lots of productivity savings or efficiencies that are easy to find. But I think, as the production systems get more complex and the equipment becomes more technical, it becomes not easy to find those productivity, increasing those productivity or those productivity savings. So at Googe, we're taking a number of steps to do that. Obviously there's the usual things that you do, talking to operators, getting feedback from production management, all of those types of things. We also marry that with some modelling that we do, production modelling. So, I'm actually an accountant by background, so, for better or worse, numbers matter. And we've built this production model, which assists us in really understanding blockages at a higher level in our system. That production modelling gets complex pretty quickly. And even with simplifying assumptions, we've still got to really sense check it with our production operators. But basically what that model does, and it covers, sort rates, wash times, transport times on conveyors, all the way through to machine productivity, how many pieces per hour are we getting out of that machine. And what it's really allowed us to do is get that visibility of where the bottlenecks are in our production system. Is it dryer capacity, or, do we need to introduce more automation in certain areas? Do we need to move products across different machines to try and better utilise the machinery? And from there, we then drill into it at a machine level, and that's where, we're looking at what's the nameplate rating or the target performance that we're expecting from, those machines, and then what are we actually achieving, and then how do we go about fixing that if there's a big gap. The low-hanging fruit, solving capacity bottlenecks, I guess, by installation of more equipment. If you've got production floor space and the integration's easy, they're the easy wins. But some of the harder wins are where you've really got to look at all of the OH&S initiatives, all of the productivity initiatives together. So, we've got an INA that the performance on it wasn't where we wanted it to be. And so we completed a review of that machine, and we've really been drilling into what's driving the performance. And, generally what you find is it's not just, a machinery issue. It's not just an operator issue. It's not just an OH&S issue. It's a combination of those things that you need to resolve. And on this INA, we found a number of machinery issues. One of the big issues was just the performance of the picker, which we need to resolve. The jams and the poor presentation to operators was really an issue, an OH&S issue for our team. And even the way our operators were picking and flipping the sheets wasn't the most efficient way. So we then had to move to resolving those, and we went through a number of steps. So, operator training became really important, and we focused on the way in which those sheets are being selected and then flipped by the operators. We had to change sensor levels. We needed to make some maintenance changes. And, particularly to our regular cleaning and waxing regimes. We needed some operational interventions to resolve some of the jams before they became an issue. And then ultimately, we've got to replace some kit on that INA to get it working where we want it to get to. In terms of COVID management, as Ray mentioned, it's been a real challenge for all of us. We've had some real mainstays of our COVID management, and they've really flexed depending on what the COVID risk profile has been. So, the key thing that we found is, we really needed to support our people through these. So that's, whether that was checking in on them when they were in isolation. whether it was, at times we had a big, in Shepparton, there was a big isolation earlier in COVID and, 30 to 40% of the staff were in isolation, and we ended up delivering food because the support systems around Shepparton just couldn't cope. So that kind of support of our people, I think, was critical, and I think it also then really helped us able to flex with COVID. When volumes peaked and we needed overtime through to when there were drops, and we needed to kind of manage hours to make it all come together. On a kind of operational perspective, a lot of focus on segregation of our shifts, so our day shift and our afternoon shift don't touch each other. Segregation within shifts, so clean between the clean side and the sort side, and then kind of at the peak of COVID, actually, work areas within the clean side and the sort side were segregated. Health checks have been a kind of really important part of managing COVID, and a lot of it's actually been more about the confidence for staff that they're working in an environment where we're trying to keep them as safe as what we can, and that kind of links in with PPE. We've introduced outdoor lunch areas in Marubna, where we kind of run for weeks with 40 degrees plus. That's keeping those areas cool has been one of our challenges. Personal and plant hygiene has been it's always important. We all like a clean plant, but it's kind of really stepped up in terms of the surface cleaning and focus on our staff and their hygiene. And obviously we've had kind of work from home in the mix, like I'm sure many of you had from kind of administrative perspective. Just to finish off, I guess there's probably been, there's some silver linings, I guess, to the COVID cloud from a productivity perspective. Although I probably failed today, it's kind of proved up the technology, and certainly, we will continue to have some of our meetings even once, the COVID restrictions kind of completely disappear. We'll continue to do some of our meetings where it makes sense, either internal or external, on Teams or Zoom. Work from home flexibility, and again, this is more in our administration areas, but we've now got the technology for our people to work effectively from home, and I think some of those roles that can happen, and certainly assist with job satisfaction in a time where as Ray mentioned, it's been incredibly difficult to get staff across all kind of positions in the business. Health management certainly is now more on the radar. I think when we stripped out kind of the impacts of COVID isolation, I think the better monitoring of health is probably and going forward, will probably have a net benefit in terms of productivity. And then finally, it's all about the people, and that mutual support of your staff, has really allowed us to flex with the implications of managing with COVID. Luke, you've come back on, mate. I imagine I've hit my time, so I'll pause there.
Thanks very much for all that, John. Questions from Peter Williamson. How long have you used the bundle productivity system, and how would you compare it to Spindle?
So I actually haven't used Spindle, so I can't really comment on that. We've used Bundle. Look, I've been with the business for about 5 years, and it's been there all of that time. It's a really important kind of part of our business. The understanding of the efficiency of the plant. That's really a key driver to be able to understand where your productivity levels are, and really where you need to investigate how you're going to kind of drive your productivity up and improve it.
Okay. And from Fred Jardine, what's your unit of measurement for productivity, or how do you measure it?
So, I think there's different productivity measures for different parts of the business. Certainly from a kind of overall position, where, I'm always looking at what our tonnes per hour through the plant are. But then when you drill into on the clean side and you're looking at an individual towel folder, we'll be looking at, pieces per operator hour, on a kind of really regular basis, on a real-time basis.
Okay, thanks, John. And so final question to you before we go to Warwick, and this is from Vince Neal. Do you have any specific requirements in the chemical dispensing systems? you might loaded question, but you might want to speak to him later about that as well.
Yeah, no problems at all.
Okay. All right. Cool. Okay. Warwick, are you ready to go, mate?
Good morning, all. For those of you who don't know me, Warwick Brown's my name. I'm the CEO of Safecorp Group, being the parent company for Prince's Laundry. My role sits across a couple of different industries, both laundry and also our locking industry as well. So I can sometimes have a very interesting day. Today I'm up in not so sunny Queensland. It's wonderful to be able to do some cross-border travelling. It's only the second time I've been here in nearly 8 months. So very excited to be here at the plant today. I'm going to do a live...
Warwick, can you just hold for a second? John, can you unshare your screen, please? Thanks, mate. Cool.
I'm going to do a live tour of the Burleigh Heads plant this morning, so hopefully that all works well. I'm going to take you guys through the facility as it's working, so give you a bit of an insight into this plant. Just a couple of numbers for this facility before we head out and do a walkthrough. So currently this plant is processing or invoicing, so we work off invoice ton as our metric. We're doing around about 170 tons per week out of this facility. However, during the peak of December and January, it went up to 220 tons. So a fairly large increase over those peak periods. And I think one of the difficult things is understanding what that volume is going to look like in 6 and 8 months' time once we get back to some sort of normality from a tourism perspective. In terms of costs for this plant, I'm happy to share a few of those with you. So we work on a couple of different measures, obviously to measure productivity, but our kilos per operator hour, or KIPOs is what we call it in our business, is one of our key indicators. Essentially, that is all production staff. So no drivers included, no supervisors included, but all production staff hours divided by our total amount of invoice ton, not wash ton, invoice ton. So this plant currently runs at around about 72 kilos per operator hour, which is reasonable. And that ends up at around about a cost of 52 cents a kilo for us at this plant, which is okay. We prefer it to be in the 40s, but that's reasonable. To give you a bit of, and it's obviously been challenging managing the volumes up and down as well. I have got some plants up over 60 cents per kilogram and some in the 40s as well. So there is a wide variety of volume there. In terms of this facility, we own this plant, and we've been in this plant since around 1997. I think Ray might have even started out his career at this facility a few years ago. I'll give you a live tour around. So this plant is predominantly accommodation linen. We service obviously southeast Queensland, across the border into New South Wales, and also into the Brisbane market as well. We do have a couple of healthcare clients that we service out of here, but predominantly an accommodation facility. So I'm going to turn my camera around, if everyone's comfortable with that, and start our tour through the Burleigh Heads facility. Just making my way outside the office now. And Luke, please let me know if you have any problems either hearing or seeing what's going on. All right. So, go. Nice and humid up here on the Gold Coast at the moment. So a bit of an awkward setup here. We only operate out of around about 1,800 square metres under roof. So doing 170 tonne a week out of 1,800 square metres does provide a challenge at times. So morning, boys. How are we? So the receiving area through here, which is where all of our soil linen comes into the plant. Obviously, we have a reasonable size coverage in here, but of course, we do need to rely upon using the driveway at times, depending on the periods of time. I'm going to give you the nitty gritty tour. So good morning, say hello. So workshop, very important. I always think a very good indicator of how a plant is maintained. If there's a clean workshop, then you've got a good level of maintenance occurring at your facility as well. Moving through into our sorting area, plenty of soiled linen. Chemical dispensing over the back there. We've got bunding around the chemical dispensing unit. We use Ecolab in this facility. Sorting deck, pretty simple setup. Morning, mate. We're using spindle at this plant as well. I'll take you quickly upstairs to the sorting deck so you can see what happens up there. Three operators sorting over the sorting deck. Those guys. Bag rail system feeding to two CBWs. We're about to commence a large upgrade of our washing systems. We're putting in a new CBW and bank of dryers. That's about to commence this week, which is great. It's going to be replacing a 1984 model Milner. So just moving here to the flatwork area. Put our manual washroom here. We obviously process our manual smalls. This is the old Milner that's being replaced this month. It served us very well, but unfortunately the time has come. That to be replaced. Just moving through to the washing area. So we have a 12 compartment 50 kilo machine here, and we're putting in a 16 compartment 50 kilo machine in replacement of the Milner. Obviously there's going to be great efficiencies in the dryers and the washing once that plant's been updated. Through the flat work, hey guys. We've got 3 ironer lines in total here, small piece ironer line and 2 sheet machines. We've got girls on break at the moment, but plenty of work lined up behind them, ready to go. We have a mix of equipment, both Jensen and Kanagisa finishing equipment. Plenty of rejects as always. Lots of inspection. Morning. Good. Hand folding. We're in the middle of doing some maintenance on the machine as well. Looks like they're replacing some tapes. As you can probably see, we also have a sophisticated conveyor system here, which separates obviously our sheets to the back of the ironers that way, and our toweling actually gets transported around on this conveyor here. So we're reducing the amount of trolleys that are on the floor, and that drops over here to a 3-station towel folding system. I'll take you around the back so you can see that. So this is actually a blanket folder that we've converted into a 3-lane towel folder. You all right, boys? Oh, there we go. We've got a jam up. So 3 lines there. The towels are automatically fed off the conveyor belts here. And in terms of that twisting and pulling motion that John is referring to, all of the towels are presented in front of the operators here, which makes it nice and easy for them. So quite a small facility in terms of the scale of laundry these days, and certainly push out a lot of volume. Turn the camera around, push out a lot of volume in terms of the amount of floor space that we've got. So during the summer periods around that December, January time, and of course September school holidays, which is another peak period for us as well, it's very difficult to get that level of work out. Suffice to say, with the amount of floor space we've got, we've also got to work longer hours as well. So generally speaking, the plant with its current equipment setup will operate 20 hours in the day. So there's only a 4-hour break during that peak period. That's obviously all being pulled back now as the volume drops. And we're certainly hoping with the installation of our new equipment, we can draw that back even further. I just want to talk quickly about a couple of things in terms of our Princes group. So we have 7 laundries across the country, 4 in Melbourne, 2 doing hospitality and 2 doing healthcare. We have 1 facility in Adelaide doing a mix of work. And then we have our 2 facilities up here in Queensland, being Burleigh Heads and Maroochydore. Obviously, during the COVID period of time, I'm not going to go across what everyone else has spoken about. I think we can all agree that it was an extraordinarily difficult time. But I think that my comments and sentiments sit with where Joe's at, and that the difficulty during the actual lockdowns, where certainly we're getting government support, etc., was manageable because of the government support that was there. What's been unmanageable has been coming out of COVID. So obviously the staffing issue has been massive for us. And of course, the inconsistency in the hospitality market has been really, really difficult to manage. So our clients have either been absolutely flat out and busy for 2 or 3 days of the week, and then completely dead in the preceding Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays. A lot of that because the corporate travel market isn't there to flatten out the midweek volumes and occupancies. And certainly the international airlines that would generally come in, a lot of those guys would take up thousands of hotel rooms in the CBDs across the country on a weekly basis as well. And of course, your regular inbound tourism and business traveller hasn't been there. So that's made it extremely difficult. Unfortunately, the cost of our service has certainly gone up. We've been extremely aggressive in trying to get higher prices for our work, and we've had some success in doing that. However, the rate increases that we've achieved have been eroded by the additional costs we've incurred for providing the service. So a couple of things that have driven that cost, and I'm not talking about the purchase cost of linen and trolleys and containers, etc. Everyone understands how much that's gone up, but the cost of linen in total in terms of having it in your business. So we still operate and will be required to operate our accommodation customers with 5 par of toweling and 4 par of sheeting. That's our methodology. And the reason for that is we don't like working on weekends. We will work Saturdays and we will work Sundays if we have to, but we like to really have Saturday afternoons as a buffer and certainly Sundays as a buffer to allow for any breakdowns or any issues that happen at the plant. We can have those as days to catch up. But traditionally speaking, we don't like to run on the weekends, hence the reason why we have our 4 and 5 par method. Now, the challenge at the moment is 4 and 5 par is required because you do have your hotels that are busy for maybe a Thursday, Friday and Saturday night, and they do require that additional linen to be there. So they've got linen to make their beds on a Monday, but the overall volume that account is producing has decreased by, obviously we all know the numbers, but at the moment it's sitting around about 30% down, even 40% down at times. So I've still got the same cost of linen in terms of the amount of linen I have to carry, but I've got 30% less revenue coming out of that account. So that's certainly impacted the cost of linen management. And the other thing that's been an increase of cost has obviously been our labour. We have lost some efficiencies during this, as Ray touched on earlier, with a lot of new staff coming in. I wish I had more new staff because that would mean I'd be doing less overtime. But the amount of overtime that I'm having to get done to meet our customers' demands is making my overall labour costs far more expensive. So we obviously want to make sure that we're customer focused and we deliver our customers everything they need on a daily and weekly basis. But that comes at a cost. And so when my plant and production managers need to make a daily choice about whether they work overtime or not, unfortunately, for any shareholder in the business, myself and Jeff included, that obviously hurts our hip pocket. But at the same time, our belief is that we're best off making a loss on that particular week if we keep our customers happy. Now, that always isn't the case. We strive to try and meet our customers' demands every day that we operate our business. However, we need to work really, really closely with our customers to make sure that their demands are realistic and being met with the amount of beds that they need to change on that day. Now, that has proven to be very difficult, particularly of late, because not only has the laundry industry suffered from an employment hole, but also the housekeeping and services industry in total have had a lot of new people come through. So we've found ourselves, and particularly our customer service reps, having to do a lot of retraining of people, particularly to understand how to order linen, making sure that they're ordering consistently throughout the week, not giving us 0 orders and then ordering 1,000 of something on Thursday and 1,000 of something on Saturday when we've got trucks and linen available to go to them Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So there's been a lot of training that's needed to occur at the customer end. And then, of course, trying to get some handle on what the revenue profile looks like and what their occupancy rate look like into the future. We're obviously working very closely with our customers to try and understand that. Unfortunately, though, a lot of the market at the moment, particularly that Friday, Saturday market, is last minute stuff at the moment. So we're finding that hotels are only holding 60% occupancy the Thursday, and then come Friday afternoon, they got bookings galore and go up to 85% occupancy, which of course can catch us out and requires us then to work longer hours on a Saturday to get the clients what they need. So look, there's a few of the things that I think are really challenging for our business. As I said, we're really trying hard to obviously drive up the price of our of our service, but that is to not only try and improve margin, but also trying to recoup some of the costs that we've incurred, which I think have been very much covered up by the lack of volume coming through. We've still got a lot of costs operating in our business that we need to cover off on. So that's about all from me, Luke. I think I've hit my time limit. Done well to keep me to that amount of time.
No, thanks very much, Warwick. That was really good. A couple of questions. What is the difference between the invoice weight versus wash weight?
Very good question. So it does vary between state to state. We have the highest gap between invoice weight and wash weight in our Queensland facilities. A couple of reasons for that. We have obviously a lot longer stays up here, so the linen generally comes back a lot wetter. And also too, we have a lot more humidity up here, so the moisture stays in the linen a lot more. So this plant is around about 20%, 25%. At some of my Victorian laundries, it's as low as 15%. But this has always been traditionally higher in Queensland.
Okay, and the other question, how do you find the blanket folder versus the towel folder?
Oh, look, the blanket folders have been good for us in the healthcare laundries that we operate. And as a towel folder, I think that, we've got different setups across the country, some where we've got 3 individual lines together. This one, I think, is a good one that you can do a mix of work through it. And there seems to be quite a bit of competition that occurs on that line as well when you've got 3 lanes of towels being folded at once. So particularly with the spindle system setup, everyone knows where they're sitting, and there seems to be some good competition that occurs on that piece of equipment.
Thanks. Thanks again, Warwick, for that. Ray, can I come back to you and just cover those couple of questions we had earlier on? And one is from Peter Williamson from Linen Services Australia. What staff rewards and recognition retention strategies have you deployed to support your current position?
Yeah, good question. So that's something that's an ongoing discussion internally with us. So pre-COVID, we didn't have we didn't have an official award program in, but we've found we've had to revisit that in terms of. But for example, through Christmas, we were giving out Coles gift vouchers, $50 Coles gift vouchers, but the main focus for us has been on the retention of new staff. So we've got a program that we're just looking at the moment. It hasn't been executed yet, where there's a bonus for retention. So if a new staff, we're trying to cut down on the churn rate of staff. So if someone stays with us for a month, then there's a bonus in place at the end of their 4th week, things like that. So as I touched on earlier, with the quantum of new people coming into the business that don't understand our industry, and the churn rate has gone through the roof. So we're trying to look at incentives, not so much to incentivize performance at the moment, it's to incentivize retention.
Okay, excellent. Thanks very much for that. And finally, what percentage of your staff are permanent compared to casual?
So pre-COVID, I could give you that number off the top of my head, but as I said, through COVID, we had a huge round of redundancies, and to be honest, I couldn't quote that number, and it varies. But we prefer more permanents than casuals within our business, but that's something we're looking at the moment. But once we get that stability in the workforce, we'll be ramping up our conversion rates to permanent positions.
Okay, excellent. Look, thanks. We're just about out of time, everyone. So I, again, greatly appreciate you attending today, this webinar. Particularly like to thank Rita Morrison for her leadership on getting this webinar program going, and a very successful one today. And to Ray Hayes, John Colegia, and Warwick Brown, thanks very much for your efforts and taking us around your operations today as well. If there are any other questions, please feel free to contact us at the LAA, and we can get those from the relevant speaker. But apart from that, I think you could probably also say that, well, I'll just do a couple of quick plugs for some of our programs. The AS 4146 review there's a bit of momentum with that, a bit of progress with that. If you have any views on how AS 4146 could be improved upon, please let me know. Also, I'm still looking for feedback on our gas initiative, where you basically provide us with your gas figures for this year and for next year and the year after, and see whether we can do a bit of a group negotiation for that. That would be good if you could provide us with some information for that. And finally, there will be another webinar next month and in ongoing months as well, so please stay tuned to that. Apart from that, again, thank you very much for your time today. Thanks for all those that supported it and provided input, and we look forward to being in contact with you again fairly soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke.